Now, going back to your time at Nike, what was that like for you, man, in terms of organizing some of those high-profile camps? You named some of the people you worked with there and hosted camps for, in terms of Kevin Durant, Derrick Rose, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, just to name a few. Was there ever a player that stood out to you back then from your interactions, or that you saw participating at the camp, and that person just stuck with you?
I got two different extremes. Klay Thompson, you know how great Klay Thompson is a player right now?
Yeah.
Everybody knows. It's terrific, right?
Absolutely.
Terrific.
One of the best in the game.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, one of the camps I was running, it was my job to identify the top players, to come up with a list, to basically invite the players and decide who's going to be invited to those camps. And so we had these skills academies, and, you know, we only were going to invite 20 to 25 players at those camps. So we would invite 20 of the top point guards in the country. Then it would be 20 of the top wings in the country. There'd be 20 of the top forwards in the country. Klay Thompson was one of those guys that I got a call from my boss at the time, George Raveling, and said, Sherman, we need to invite Klay Thompson. And I said, well, Klay's not on my list, friend. I said, God, he's not on our radar. You know, and I got a list here of about 60 kids, and he's nowhere near the top. And George says, well, Sherman, we got to invite him. I says, well, okay. And I forgot, I didn't even realize it was Michael Thompson's son, right? And so I go, okay, George, if you say so, let's do that. So I invite him, and, you know, he had a decent camp. You know, it wasn't like he didn't belong at the camp, but he was nowhere near the top of the other guys we had at camp, you know. And so look at him now and how it turned out. He just blossomed into a terrific player. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, running the Nike All-American camp, one of the guys, we had more kids invited to that camp, but that was held in Indianapolis. We would invite 150 to 200 players to that camp. And it was during the summer months, and Kevin Durant was heavy on my list. One of the first trips I made, part of my thing was to build relationships with players. And one of the first trips I made working for Nike was going out to flying into Washington, D.C. and meeting with Kevin Durant, his stepfather and mother, and his AAU coach. We just sit down at dinner at Ruth Chris and had a nice dinner. And a part of that is building that relationship and hoping that I can get him to camp. Well, as it turned out, he had summer school and had an obligation where he couldn't make it to camp, and he showed up the last 2 days of camp. So this is where it gets a little interesting. So I still decided to invite Kevin to come to camp. He said, I can come for 2 days, Coach, if you want me to. I said, yeah, we'd love to have you. So he comes out for 2 days, and he ends up getting MVP of the camp.
Jeez.
And so I have to make that decision, and I give him. And so I got a lot of static for that. Like, wait a minute, he shows up, he misses 3 days of camp, and he shows up in 2 days, and he gets MVP of the camp. So those were the two extremes. But the joy of that was, I think it working for Nike. Obviously, it was. My coaching experience helped me work for Nike because it helped me with the ability to identify players. And I think you're always evaluating and trying to see if a player can play at a certain level. Well, at Nike, it was even more fine-tuned because now you're dealing with the elite of the elite, the top of the top. And that's really, really hard. When you're trying to find the top 20 players in the country, well, in a certain position, you have to really, really have the eye for that. And I think I honed my skills in terms of evaluating by doing that beforehand. And then when I got to Nike, I think it even became better. So now as a college coach, in terms of evaluating, my experience at Nike has helped me tremendously here at the University of Iowa. A is the evaluation process I worked on, but B is the connections I made while working for Nike. And, you know, working for Nike, you have maybe 60, 70 AAU teams that are under your umbrella. So you're dealing with all these AAU coaches and directors. And I think that has helped me with relationships. So, and when I talked to Fran about coming to school here and working with him, I said, Fran, I'm not saying I can call up an AAU coach and he's going to deliver a player, but I think I can call up an AAU coach who's going to pick up the phone. I said, part of it is just being able to connect with these coaches. Right. And that helped me when I got on board here my first few years here at Iowa, because I still had those relationships built with like Boo Williams down in Virginia, you know, and Renee Pulley in Minneapolis, you know. And so it was a great experience, rubbing shoulders with not only some of the best in the world in terms of the NBA players and collegiate players, but even dealing with celebrities, Hollywood people, Michael Jordan's camp. I would work Michael Jordan's camp. It was called a flight school. And you'd see Will Smith's wife walk in with his son, and they would play in those camps. So in terms of that, it was just a glorious position. And I got this moniker, like people would say, that's the Nike man. Like, I really wasn't a Nike guy, but in their mind, their perception was this guy is walking in the air. He's the guy that carries the power because he's the one that's inviting these great players. So my phone would ring off the hook. And when I took the job, I asked George Raveling, I said, George, it's one of those things, a business thing you do when you interview for a job. You say, okay, George, what's the toughest part of the job? And he says, you got to say no to so many people. And truer words have never been spoken, because you have everybody thinking that their son belongs in that top 20 at a skills academy. And so you have this thing where your phone's ringing off the hook and everybody's trying to push a certain kid, a certain player. And eventually you have to say no to some kids. And that was the toughest part of the job. But I wouldn't trade everything. I thought it was a great experience for me. I did it for 5 years. But I still enjoy coaching college basketball, having a family, a team around me, the staff, the trainers, managers, fan support, et cetera. So, again, I've been blessed in that regard.